One, two, testing, one, two. Dom Famularo here, Sabian Education Network, and I continue this incredible every other week, twice a month on Thursdays. I've got some of your time to share with some fantastic players. And we had the great Chris Johnson scheduled for today, but unfortunately with some personal challenges and some scheduling issues that we had, we decided to reschedule Chris, and we'll bring him in on another time when we can have more time to talk about his projects of what he has with his new book, Paradiddle Mania, which is out, which is just fantastic. So we'll get more to that at a different time. But today, I'm bringing in the great, the one and only, Mr. Joe Bergamini.
Whoa! It's I feel like they were expecting the main event, but they got me. Everyone's like, ah, man, that guy.
Hey, think of it like at a Broadway show where no one knows you're subbing.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
They hear the greatness of the playing, you play the chart exactly how it is, and no one knows any different.
That's right. That's right. They only know when you screw up.
Well, that's unfortunate. There's a lot of truth to that for sure. We have tons of different things to talk about, Joe, and I want to kind of run by and utilize this time. We have an hour of time, and as this goes live to Facebook and YouTube channel for Sabian, it's just so great to have this opportunity that we can fill in and talk about a zillion different things that are happening. So let's just start focusing on the SEN program. Just talk to me a little bit about what it's been like now with the SEN program and the thousands of educators that we have worldwide.
Absolutely. First, I want to say, we'll definitely get Christian back on, like you said. He's going through a difficult thing. But because we've been doing so much during this pandemic with SEN, with you as my right-hand man, we figured, let's go live and talk about it, and hopefully, welcome some comments and questions from the viewers that always come in when you do these host these events. But when the pandemic started, we sort of circled the wagon. I like to think, we circled the wagons with SEN a little bit. And, I remember us talking and saying, we have to figure out how to get drum teachers the information they need to hopefully thrive. Everybody went in a day to teaching online. And one of the things I'm really proud of is in the beginning, we did sessions about going into the newest technology. We talked about Zoom, we talked about Skype, we talked about all the different setups. And that still is a topic that everybody is interested in because it's here to stay, right?
It really is here to stay. And this is the new world that we're in right now. The old world will come back, but now the old world has been enhanced with a whole nother dimension of education. I have been doing this online teaching for like 25 years. I was probably the first, if not one of the first doing it. I don't know anyone else that was doing it at that time. And I was kind of like looked at to a certain degree like I was a little bit out of my mind. Well, I confirmed the fact that I know I am out of my mind, but that didn't stop me from researching and finding out how I can teach, because as I was doing clinics for Sabian around the world, when I came back before even the internet was happening, there were many people that were writing me that wanted lessons with me. And when they wanted lessons and they could not travel, I kept on saying there's got to be a way that I can reach these people without the insanity of them investing in flight and hotel and all that. So I started learning, and before you know it, through Skype and through we had to have a separate modem on the outside of the computer before computers had modems. All that was a learning process. And here I am years later, 25 years later, still working on the learning process and with all these switches and cameras and how to work all this stuff. So you have to kind of embrace the change and the dynamics of what technology is offering us.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that we emphasized in the beginning was that you don't have to have all the bells and whistles. We both encouraged everybody, just book the first one. Book your first lesson to do online, and you'll figure it out as you go along. And you did that a long time ago. I did it actually before the pandemic to a degree. Yeah. But then we started really having to do it on a daily basis and starting to try to figure out how can we make this experience enjoyable for ourselves as a teacher and for the person on the other end. So coaching your students about being better connected, and there are some of I started doing in-person lessons again. In New Jersey and New York, a lot of people are vaccinated and things are starting to reopen, which is great. But I have students who live borderline. If they're, say, close to an hour away. Some of them were like, you know what, I like the online thing. I'm just going to keep doing it that way. And then, of course, we both teach people who are too far away to, in another state or even another country that can't come. So all the investment in it has been really well worth it. And SEN, if you're watching and you're an SEN member, you can go back inside the site and you can watch all of those sessions. And we had different guests on, different panelists. I hate leaving people out, but I know Murray Piper comes to mind, and of course Jim Toscano and Jeremy Hummel. We had all these great leading teachers come on, and we roundtabled and talked about all these solutions. So all that stuff is still available inside the site, and we continue to keep learning now. Like, we've even learned more about this platform. We figured out the StreamYard platform to go to YouTube and Facebook, and whenever you get technology involved, sometimes the machines don't like each other at first, and you just learn as you go,
And what's interesting about this here, what I'm so impressed with what the Sabian Education Network has done, Joe, and with you managing it and me kind of goosing you along the way, is to reach these people and let them know that there is another opportunity in how we can survive as educators and continue to grow. And you really have to learn to embrace the technology. It's not easy, this learning curve, believe me. And I'm getting older and still having to learn at a high level. So I've embraced it, and I stay patient with it, and I learn it. Do I get frustrated? Every freaking day with this technology. Mm-hmm. But the advantage of what it delivers to me is absolutely incredible, that I can reach drummers around the world. And the advantages are they're not paying for flights or hotels to come by. So the expense of getting here is much more acceptable. And even if it's a student that has to drive an hour to get to me, now they're not driving the hour to get to me. The hour that they would get to me and the hour they would drive home, that's 2 more hours they have to practice.
Right.
So we really have opened up more time in their schedule to learn the craft more. The other part of it is the fact that I'm seeing all of my students in their own setting on their own kit.
Right.
Where they're absolutely most comfortable. When someone comes to my studio, even though I've got 2 full setups in here, my setup and my student setup, they still have to adjust it. And even if they spend some time adjusting my kit for them, which is a high-end kit that I have offered to them, they're still not 100% comfortable. So right. The comfort zone of them being on their own drum set allows me to see how the drums are set up, how they're tuning, questions totally pertaining to that kit for what it is. That's opened up an opportunity which we did not have before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, I'd like to see some of the comments, if some of the listeners agree. My students have really run the gamut. Some of them jumped into the technology thing full on. Actually, a couple of the guys I taught this morning using quiet tone cymbals. They can't play loud in the house. They set up some electronic mesh heads on the drums and quiet tone cymbals. So I've really seen how some of the Sabian products have helped. But some of my students dove right into the technology thing and are thriving with it. Others kind of, struggle along, but we try to encourage them to use it. And, where there's a will, there's a way. So the more you can learn as a teacher, the more you can get those students who are struggling with it to try it. And that stuff is what I'm talking about. A lot of that information is saved in the SEN site. So if you're a member, go back and look it up. If you're not a member, what are you waiting for? We've been on here live every week. So, and that's just those sessions. Then we did the finale course, and we had Ron Beanstock come on and talk about entertainment law for the members, and we had Mike Sorrentino teach about recording in Logic. He just did his 2nd course last week, and it was amazing. So we've, and of course we had a few clinics too. We had David Garibaldi did one, and Daphnis Prieto did one. Those were for members only. So, and all the sessions you've done featuring our educators every Thursday. So, as we go forward and things hopefully get back to normal, we'll still keep, we're going to keep providing this. I think SEN's really provided a good form of help and a resource for a lot of people. And I've been really just humbled and grateful as to the response I've gotten from everybody in emails and comments and texts and things about how much the members have benefited from it. So it's really, humbling and empowering, and Sabian is, leading the way. The fact that this company through the pandemic has still kept this program up, and kept you and I doing our dog and pony show here and helping people, it's just amazing. And it's because they know that drum teachers and their students are really the lifeblood of our industry as drummers.
It's amazing on a couple different levels, Joe, because with the vision that Sabian has and allowing us to connect teachers around the world. And I ask you all to go to Sabian.com/join SEN. Fill out the application online and just sign on and just join, and you'll get emails and information as far as a variety of different subject matter that will help you not only with setting up your studio and being an educator, but also the learning process. I mean, we have had sessions with Billy Cobham, David Garibaldi interviews, Dave Weckl, Tom Breckland, my gosh, Carmine Appice. We can go down the list. We've had everybody, and we're going to bring them back as we develop more and more. And there's even more to add to the list. So we're going to keep this thing going because it's helping out many people. So I say go back and review a lot of those past videos. They're timeless. They will help you out. They are current when you hear them. And what you're going to get out of it is not only educational ideas, which will help you out as a player and as a teacher. You're going to be inspired. You're going to hear these fantastic artists talk about their craft at such a personal level, which really is unique to have now available for us. So it's pretty powerful and all. And Joe, we've got a variety of people that have joined us here. We've got, I got to go down my little list here. So here we have Max is a wonderful drummer from Russia. He's in Toyamin, Siberia. Whoa. And he is my translator when I give a class on Thursdays, just before this class here. I've got a class of several students from Ukraine, from Russia, from Cyprus, and they join along the way, and we do once a week. And 1 week we go through stick control, a page each week, and the following week we go through accents and rebounds. So we go through the page, I have them play it, I watch them, we talk about the techniques, we apply it, and we're going to be able to finish these 2 books and go through it. They'll get a certificate at the end of that says we went through every single page. Now in stick control, there's 42 weeks of going through it, and we do it every other week, opposite accents and rebounds. So in all these weeks, we will have finished these books and gone through. What a great program to have. And they've joined us here. So Max is my translator and a great drummer.
Awesome.
We've got also from there, we've got Sean McGaffey is here. Thanks so much. Irokin is here. Maxim Dioman, who organizes the event that I do on Thursday. Maxim has a book called The Paradiddle Book, which has got over 3,000 computations of concepts of paradiddles. It's absolutely a brilliant book. We've got Evgen Lee, who's from the Ukraine. We've got Marina, who's from Cyprus, a wonderful female drummer that's working with us also in the class. Marina, thank you so much for joining us. John Gill is here. Fantastic.
Hey, John.
From upstate New York.
Yes.
And check this out. Hi, Dom and Joe. I purchased your Working Drummers Chart book, digital version on Hudson. Great book, highly recommended. John, thanks so much for joining us. And I'm going to have John at some point to interview John also for my segment here. Man, fantastic. John,
thanks, John.
We've got we've got Oleg here is from Russia. We've got Simon Bajaring, who's upstate New York, who's originally from Denmark, is joining us. Another phenomenal teacher. Nick Kapka is here. Boy, my gosh, we've got people already from around the world. So look at the process of what has happened since this pandemic. We've opened up these these processes of this formatting. People around the world. So I want you guys to ask questions. We got Joe and I here for the next 45 minutes. Ask questions. Let us know where you're from. But don't be afraid to ask any question you have on any subject matter relating to drumming. Nothing personal.
Definitely. No personal questions. I want to say hi to Nick Kapka. We had a great lesson this morning. Hey, Nick. Thanks for tuning in.
Fantastic. Well, this is great to have this opportunity. So, Joe, now, a couple of things. With SEN, with what's going on now, we've got all these different teachers. And we've got thousands of teachers globally. And when you sign on to the program, you'll get a newsletter that will inform you for what's happening with Joe's interviews and what he's doing and what I'm doing. And again, sign on for the few minutes. If you can't make it, go back and watch it online. But the most important thing is to get involved. Getting involved is so important just to be a part of the team. Absolutely.
And I in the last newsletter I sent out, I mentioned the upcoming spotlights that we have, but I definitely want to hear from the members as far as the sessions that they'd like to hear. So, for instance, the recording and logic course, we did it with Mike, and it was because the members the attendees wanted another session. We did a second one. So, if you, whatever you, and you can even put things in the comments if you're thinking about it right now. Do you guys want to hear more about an ongoing discussion of technology in the studio? There are always a lot of questions about cymbals. We did a great session with Mark Love and Chris Stanke. Mark, our cymbal whisperer at the factory, and Chris, our artist relations director. Do you want to hear more about, sessions about the cymbals, which I'd love to talk about a little today too. Whatever. Do you want to talk about your favorite drum books? I mean, that's always a great topic. We could talk about that today. So wherever, our goal with this program is to make it as valuable to the members as possible. And so I definitely want to hear that kind of feedback from people as to where we're going to go next. I think, Dom, there's some degree of things that are always relevant. You can always fine tune, your curriculum, discussion of books. There's always new books. Even running your business, there's always refreshing, better ways to do. I know you've, for instance, changed the way you do your scheduling over the years. You have it automated now. Yep. So you can always talk about these new topics as time goes on.
And these are so helpful. And again, new apps come out, new, different programs that can assist you to make things easier. And when you kind of stay up on top of this stuff here, you have to be willing to look into it and make the change. And sometimes it's not easy. It takes a little bit more research, but it's always beneficial. And it's beneficial in the fact that, for example, I use now Calendly. Calendly is a program. It's a Calendly, L-Y, Calendly. Mm-hmm. And it's a program that you set it up, you pay just very, very little per month. But what happens is a student clicks on that link and sees my schedule for the next 2 months and see what's available. They can click on a time and they go right to that time, they pay, and as soon as they pay, they then receive a Zoom link for that session. And then the day before, they are emailed from Calendly a reminder. So this has made it so much easier for me that I'm not going in and sending out Zoom links and going through all this stuff here too. So it's made it much, much easier. And again, it was another learning curve. And fortunately, my wife helped me out with it and I got it together where I can understand it. That's out, and that's lifted now my teaching practice now where I can even squeeze more people in, and they have the option of scheduling it much easier for them to see what's available in their time. And it also makes the time zone changes no matter where you live around the world. Oh. And with all the people that we have on here that's joining us, for example, we have Dasha. Dasha is a phenomenal drummer, female drummer from Moscow. Her wonderful husband, Artemy, is another great, great drummer, and they are also joining me on the weekly basis that we do for Maxim Dioman for the classes. Dasha, thank you so much for joining.
Awesome.
Karen Feder is here. Karen Feder is another wonderful female teacher that teaches and performs. Great, great to see you. Thank you, Karen. We've got, let's check this one out. Joseph Howard, metal drummer from Denver, Colorado here. Metal, man, bring it on. That's the way to have some fun and love your music. I just had actually a wonderful talk this morning with Gene Hoagland. And nice. Gene, who was another one of my favorite players, another metal player and a real drumming god. But we've got so many people that are joining us here that it's just so incredible to witness the fact that the globe has joined here, and this is part of the process. Now, Joe, let's talk about a couple of different things. Let's talk about this recent book that you had come out, this chart book. What's amazing about it is that I just received the book in the mail. Thank you so much. And what's incredible, I've already got about 8 drummers working on it, 8 of my students. And it's
awesome.
Already helping out for them to see how to write a chart, how to understand writing a chart, and the advantages of what chart, reading can do for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is, I saw a question there from Nick Hardy, mental health for musicians unable to play live or teach your students in person. And Nick, I think, is referring to the pandemic. Actually, that relates to the book. I was, like everybody else, was home, no gigs, had some time. And Nick, actually, I think, looking into some projects that I never had time for before during the pandemic was one of the ways I addressed my mental health. I wanted to, catch up on a lot of things. And over the years, I realized, man, I probably made 300, 400, 500 of these charts for different gigs, whether it was a wedding, a bar gig, any kind of concert, and just realized that my students always seemed very interested in this. And I've said before in seminars, I have a little bit of an inside scoop about books, being a senior editor at Hudson Music, but the trick with a drum book, Dom, is that you have to come up with a topic that hasn't been written about 1,000 times. Because, you can write about whatever you want. If you're inspired to write about it, write about it. You should do it. But if you want to publish it commercially, I mean, if you come to me and you say, hey, I have a book of, layered 2 sound level concept, ghost note drumming, I'd be like, what are you, living under a rock? David Garibaldi wrote the Bible of that. Like, you don't need to do that. Do it for yourself if you want. So, but the trick is you can write about something that's not been done, but you can make it too esoteric so that, let's face it, if you're going to publish a book, it has to be viable. Otherwise, why would the publisher do it? So I was just looking at this pile of charts that was sitting in my filing cabinet and realizing that my students kept asking me more questions whenever I showed them my shorthand charts. So I just decided I thought it might be a nice simple topic for it's not an encyclopedia. It's 40 pages of just about one thing. This is how you make charts for your gigs, and I've been actually really excited because it's gotten off to a pretty exciting launch. A lot of people have bought it, and my hope was that it would just help people get through gigs. So the bulk of it is I actually have charts from songs that I made. We did engrave them, but I did include some of my handwritten charts. This is the handwritten charts look like this. This is what I have like 500 of sitting up in my office, the handwritten stuff. So anyway, and I've always enjoyed that. Like, I've done a lot of transcription books, so I always enjoyed the chart aspect of looking at written music. So that's what the book is about. And thank all you guys and gals who went out and got it so quickly. I appreciate it.
Well, Joe, you've done many gigs where you've had to, come up with some charts real quickly, where all of a sudden they gave you X amount of tunes to have to learn. And without that skill, it would have been probably very difficult for you to learn these songs. But because of that skill, you were able to listen to, chart it out, play it, and it sped the process up incredibly.
Yes, and I turned 51 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. See, there you go. So trusting my memory at this point, there's a good chance I'm going to crash and burn, forget the arrangement. So if you can write it down, you can get through a lot more. And students are always wanting to come to us, I think both of us, to improve their reading. And I mean, the key thing about reading, there's some wise guy drummer said, sort of half jokingly, how do I learn to play fast? And the answer was play fast. How do you become a better reader? Read. Learn the basics, but you just 1,000,000 repetitions, 10,000 repetitions. So that's it. And I think that's gotten me through a lot of the gigs. So that's kind of what that book is about. And but there's still all the classic books that we have done with Wisdom. Our book Pedal Control, I know you were just doing a class on that.
Yeah, I've got actually a class on pedal control that I'm doing this Saturday at 3:30 for an hour and a half, and it's kind of I'm just going to again continue on by sharing some of the questions that people had. And what's amazing about it is, and I'll have a group of people that join in. There's still some openings if anybody wants to join in. And what's amazing about it is that it's just more information to assist with the process of enjoying the love of playing drums. Mm-hmm. It all comes down to what can we learn that could just increase our fun factor. So by having better technique and by having the ability of being able to write charts out, and the chart thing really is powerful at many levels. Not only is it about just about reading a chart. I mean, when I was younger, charts were a part of the way we played. I played a lot of big bands and a lot of shows, and you had to be a chart reader. You went out there and you played big band and jazz stuff, and you were required to read. So reading was a very important part of the fundamental structure of making money playing drums. It's changed now because there are more private bands going on. They're not necessarily reading a lot of charts. But if you want to learn songs better for your band, that chart reading skill really kind of helps you to kind of notate quickly what's happening with the rhythm, where to go. And so many great players still do this to the day. Garibaldi talks about writing charts out for all the stuff that he does. And he's got a whole filing cabinet of charts, and Cobham's got a whole filing cabinet of charts. So these guys really are top pros because of that.
Sometimes, what's funny is depending on the gig, that's what's interesting. Sometimes with what you're talking about, Dom, if you were to show up on a big band gig, it's most likely whoever's the leader is going to have a book of charts, right? He's going to have trumpet part, drum part. If you go out and play a wedding, they're just going to tell you, maybe here's the songs we're going to be doing. They don't provide, years ago, you might come with a real book. But now some bands don't even play any jazz anymore. It's like rock and roll is even old. Rock and roll is oldies now, on that type of a gig, it's on you. Like you're not even given a chart. If you can't remember it, you have to make one yourself. So knowing the job is key. Certain things where you show up, you can expect to be handed a chart, and you shouldn't take the gig if that's going to scare you. But then other times, if you can't remember the material, or I've read those stories about Kenny Aronoff or guys like that being called in at the last minute when someone got hurt and they're just writing charts on an airplane. Ray Luzier actually talked about that on when we interviewed him. So it's a good skill, and it's just one skill to have. But and one thing I was thinking about with the pandemic too, with teaching, is whether it's my book or anybody's book, it's going to get, as things start to get back to normal, people start to get busy again, and then you come back to the eternal problem that we always hear. I didn't have time to practice because I was busy, I had gigs, I had teaching. So trying to find that balance where you can still keep yourself moving forward as things get back to normal is very important. And what I found lately is that you can do it in small little chunks. If you have 10 minutes to go through one page in pedal control, or one chart in my book, or something, one page out of Gad's new book when it comes out, you keep yourself moving forward in those baby steps. So I think that's going to be our next challenge. Well,
this is great, Joe. I've got. I want to bring on here. I want to bring up. I have Bruno Muse. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Bruno.
From a sunny. He's actually in Antwerp in Belgium. It's a wonderful, wonderful, the city of diamonds. We've got Greg here. Greg is a wonderful top player and teacher who took some lessons in Poland. I think he's in the Krakow area, which is a fantastic area. And so there's so many different players that are here. Let's talk about teaching for a second, Joe, as far as just some of the skills that people have and some of the questions that they have regarding, hang on a second here. Let's pull them out of here. What am I doing here? Bang, there it is. So let's talk about some of the questions they have as far as teaching, just fundamental lessons. Drummer calls you up, wants some lessons, you schedule a time. What happens in that first session with any student?
Well, for me, I try to go through an evaluation of the student. Try to use the term qualify the student. I teach a lot of different levels and types of students. I enjoy teaching beginners, and I don't take super young students, but I do teach children. So middle school and high school age, a lot of pros, a lot of hobbyist adults, a lot of aspiring college drummers, a lot of drummers in college, a lot of people getting their career started. So my first step is to try to qualify and try to sort of evaluate the student. I have a sort of curriculum that's developed over a long time, and just for sake of simplicity, reading, technique, jazz, rock, play-alongs, and kind of categories of things. And as with you, after you've been at it for a couple of decades, you start to realize, you can begin with the end in mind. You can see what works, and your system will work. So you try to figure out, where can I help this student the most? How can I challenge them just at the right amount? You don't want to just bring them in and just, everybody gets the same first lesson, maybe regardless of whether they can play or not already, or, you overshoot the student's ability and then they're frustrated, or you give them too much that they can't get done in time for the next lesson. So, I'm thinking of a first lesson I gave to a young girl who's high school age, and she's had a teacher before, so she could play some rock, some jazz. So the first lesson is really not, I'm sort of asking them to play things for me so I can get an idea of of where they fit to me. And then, of course, asking what they'd like to work on. And I always like to ask people who their favorite drummer is, who their favorite drummers are, what music they listen to, and, if they do any playing, whether they do playing in school or if they're in a weekend warrior type of band. And then from there, I sort of try to match them up to the pieces of my curriculum that I think will help them the most, with an eye towards what I think they'll enjoy.
When you talk about qualifying the student, which is so important in going through this process that you're talking about, but also what I found out too is asking them, is there any video that's on the internet, on YouTube, of them playing. 99% of the time, there's always something there that they have. A rehearsal they had, a band they went out to a date. And I go right there and I check it out and I watch it. And I watch them playing and get a feel for it. So you can kind of really step further into the student's life by doing that. And qualifying the student is a process. Any great salesman, if you walk in to purchase anything, when you walk in, if you're going to buy a car, you'll walk in and they're going to ask you, how do you drive? How many miles do you drive? Do you like a sports car? Do you like what are you looking for? You're looking to carry equipment. There's so many questions they have to ask you before they can decide what car is good for you. And then they're going to ask you what your price point is. How much money you can put down, what kind of car you're looking for, used car, new car. So there's a lot of questions that they have to ask, and when you finally get all that information, then the person can narrow it down to say, boy, now for what you need and what you want, this is the car or the few cars that'll fit into that budget, into that style of going. If you go to buy a freaking dishwasher, it's the same thing. Do you wash a lot? Do you have how many kids do you have? It's just you and your wife. So every process has got to find the information that can best suit the purchaser. When someone contacts you as a lesson, they are the purchaser. They're investing in you to guide them along the way, to give them the path of most fun, the fastest way they can to achieve this journey. So that's kind of what the responsibility comes down to.
Yeah. Dom, I see a couple questions I'd like to take, but I have a question for you first.
Yeah.
When you, with your students, do you suggest like a frequency of time to see them? Like, do you, some people must come to you once a month or every other week or even less. Do you just let them decide, or do you kind of guide that?
It's a great question, Joe. It's a combination process. And what that is I asked the student, what they're looking to achieve. And if they come to me, for example, and they take a lesson, and in that lesson, they kind of learn what they want to achieve. Like if it's technique and they're starting to get some of these movements down, I'll say, gee, you learn pretty quickly in how it is. So now you're probably ready for your next lesson in a week to 10 days. So I tell them, practice and see how you feel. If in that time, then schedule a lesson. Sometimes the student says, I want once a week. And I'll say, well, if you want once a week, my schedule might not always permit that. So I would suggest then let's do a 2-hour lesson every other week. So I try to give them enough information that they're going to have then 2 weeks to work on it. So if I give them 1 page in stick control a week, I give them now 2 pages in stick control. So they'll do it over the course of 2 weeks. So each student is a different, it's like a pliable, piece of clay, and I've got to keep on molding it until I get them exactly to the point where I'm achieving for them what they want, and I'm achieving for them what I feel they need. That's the balance of what we have here. What they want is one thing. What I feel they need to get them what they want might be a different path. So I've got to develop, so importantly, a level of trust. And that level of trust is the fact that they know that what I'm going to give them, I'm going to help you get to where you want to go. But we're going to have to take a little different path than you thought about than what we go to. Someone will come to me with a certain book and they'll say, Dom, I want to work on this book. And I'll say, boy, it's a great book, but you're not ready for that book. We've got to do this book first to prepare you for that book. And they'll say, well, I want to work on this book. I'll say, great. If you want to work on the book you brought in, it's going to take us 2 to 3 years to go through that book. If you let me take you through the book I want to take you through, we'll go through it in 6 months, and then we can go through your book that you want. It'll take us less than a year. So I have to tell them, you tell me how much money you want to spend on how much time you want to waste because of what you don't have prepared to learn what you want to learn. So there's a real level of trust that has got to come in. And I take them through, and honestly, it's kind of interesting. I had an electrician come to my house, and I had a little challenge with some of the lights. So some of the lights weren't going on. So he came by and he found out that it was a plug that was not working, that had burnt out. And that plug was on the line of the lights, and that's why the lights were not working. So he was there within less than an hour and analyzed this incredibly well. And then I showed him my electrical box in the lower part of my house. I said, boy, this is an older box. Is it worth upgrading this box? And it came down, he said, it's going to cost a couple $1,000s to change a box. This box works great. It's working great. It's all set up. You have no challenges with it. So I'd say hang on with this box and stay with it. It's going to last another 10, 20 years. Now, this guy could have easily sold me on a new box because I didn't know. If he would have said, you need a new box, it's going to cost you $2,000, I probably would have said, well, let's do it. So the trust comes down to he felt that where I was at right now, that means that electrician, not only am I going to call him every time because of the trust he showed with me, I'm going to recommend him to everybody.
Right.
That's word of mouth. And that still, to this day, is the most powerful message you can send out about teaching. If you're honest with each student, that student will talk. It's more powerful than freaking social media, because when someone says to somebody else, you got to call Joe, they're going to call you because of that level of trust.
Yeah.
So that's where the student relationship has to come down. It's so important. Let's see what kind of questions we have here, Joe.
There's a question I think we should both answer. The person's name is Alaska. I don't know, maybe, but the question is good.
Let me see.
How did I build confidence in front of a camera when I'm teaching, performing, and recording? That's a great question. Because
This is actually Marina, who's a wonderful, wonderful drummer. I love her. She's a wonderful spirit, and she's in Cyprus. Whew, beautiful Cyprus.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marina. So yeah, let's talk about that for a second. That's building confidence is the simple. I try to, when it comes to teaching and doing these kinds of things, or getting up in front of people at a clinic. I feel I just talk to people. I try to look at people one at a time. Look at faces, and they say the number one fear in the world is public speaking. Actually, so you just dispel that by just talking to the people and remembering that. I think Todd Zuckerman said it first. The people are really, they're on your side. So you have to try to keep that in mind. And of course, when it comes to performing in a high pressure situation, the only way that I can go in with confidence is by preparation. For instance, if you're going to go and play with a Broadway show for the first time, when I first went in to play the show Hamilton, I watched the night before, and I saw Alex Lacamoire, the conductor. And of course, by then, Alex is like a huge star and, high pressure thing. And I said, Alex, I'm pretty nervous about tomorrow. And he said, I'd be worried if you weren't nervous. That goes to show that there's a certain amount of care that goes into what you do. The confidence is good. You can still play with confidence even if you have a little, butterflies or whatever. Nobody wants to play with a drummer that doesn't sound confident. It's like a very uncomfortable feeling. So you have to play with confidence. You can still be, a little on edge. That's a professional skill, being able to deliver the goods when you're a little nervous. So when it comes to the performing part, I think the answer is you have to get into some of those situations, right, Dom? I mean, like you have to get on the clinic stage and do it, and you probably freak out a little bit the first time, but then you realize that no one's going to die if you mess up. It's just a drum clinic, and you'll come back and do it again the next time,
Joe, it was, how do you build confidence when you're dating somebody? And the answer is, date as many people as you can. It's kind of the same thing with drumming. You just got to get in front of the camera and just start doing it, and it'll be uncomfortable at first, and get out and start performing in front of people. And it's really a slow process of being able to not allow anyone that's listening to affect you in what you want to say. Uh-huh. Your message is way more important, and your message needs to be delivered. Every single person on this planet has a message, and that message should be delivered, and there are people that want to hear it. So by going out there and sharing that message and having the desire to want to be able to know that you just might be giving someone some joy through your talent of playing drums. In teaching, you might be sharing a bit of advice with someone that will open up their mind more for them to have more fun of learning. And in the recording process, you may just lay down a track that years to come, maybe when we're long gone, that someone will go back and hear that recording and be inspired again. So there really is, to me, a bigger message here that needs to be carried. But Marina, great question, and thank you so much. I always enjoy seeing her in our lessons. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check this one out here, Joe.
Yeah,
he's another wonderful, phenomenal drummer, and he's married to Dasha, who just made a comment here, and they're in Moscow, and they're just great couple. Check out this. At what age did Mark Juliana start studying with you? And tell us a little bit about his learning path with you.
So Mark came to me when he was, I think, in the 6th or the 7th grade, And he was pretty much at the beginning of his drumming, and we started studying together. And of course, he improved at an astronomically fast rate. At the time he came to me when he was in junior high school, he was into the Chili Peppers and Chad Smith. And I can remember the first recital he played at that I was putting on back then still. He played the drum solo out of Chad's drum book. And he learned it note for note, and it was just great. And then as we went along, when he got into high school, he really got inspired by jazz. The fire of jazz was lit under him. He started listening to Elvin and Tony and all those guys. And at that time, you know, the funny thing is I didn't really, I still have sort of a, I don't know what you would call it, not naive, but like a very, I just try to have fun with every student and get them to be as good as they can, and I enjoy it. So people will say, you know, did you know Mark was going to be so great? And I really didn't. I mean, we were just having fun, and you know, we come from a really actually fertile and you know, well-populated scene of talented drummers here in New Jersey where we are. So we just started going at it, and he came back to every lesson prepared. So by the time he got into 9th and 10th grade, I just looked forward to him coming because I knew we were going to be blazing through all the classic drum books. You know, at the time, Dom, I think I was still studying with you, and on a regular basis, I was just feeding him all that, plus all the stuff I was working on. By the time he got to the end of his high school career, the sort of the end of 11th grade, he was playing so well and he was so focused on jazz that I felt that I couldn't give him anything else. So at that point, I sent him to John Riley, who I thought would be, who I admire greatly, and I think is probably for my money, one of the best jazz drum teachers in the world, if not the best. So I sent him to John, and he continued with John. And so that was sort of how it started. But Mark and I have remained very, very close since then. And he's a great one in my book. I mean, I feel nothing but pride when I see him play. You know, he just took it into the stratosphere. And it's really cool meeting people who, like, I guess Garibaldi, Dom, didn't know, you know, he's like, you're the Mark Giuliano whisperer, he called me. You know? I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but some of the guys, it's funny, they make the connection later. You know, they don't really know, and that's not because of Mark, because Mark, God bless him, he tells everybody that I was his teacher, which is so nice. So, but that's because he and I and you, we're like family, and family's everything. So we always make sure to credit the family. You know.
It's so great. I remember Mark when he was young, studying with you, and just those conversations that we had with him. He's just a wonderful, but you know, he's a wonderful person too. So I mean, that's a whole nother type. Artemis, thank you so much.
Yeah, let's leave some time to talk cymbals too.
Yes, we'll get some time. We have Christina. I love you, Dom. I just wanted to bring that up. Okay. And we have Chris Tibaldi has joined us. Joe Ubridge. Chris Tibaldi is a wonderful drummer here in the Long Island, New York area. Phenomenal player and educator. About breaking into the Broadway scene. Joe, just explain that in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, I was playing some gigs locally, and I was playing with actually Ron Beanstalk, the entertainment attorney, who's a great bass player and good friend of mine. He had a jazz gig, and I went and did it. And at that gig, he said he had just had lunch with Chuck Berge, who was playing Moving Out, and Chuck needed a sub. And I said, wow, that would be great. So he said, call the office, and he put me in touch with Chuck the next day, and he gave me a recommendation. And Moving Out was, I told this story a few times, it was an audition situation in the sense that normally when you sub on Broadway, you go in and play the show. Someone has to trust that you're good enough to do it. You learn the book and you go and play, no net. But because Moving Out didn't have a traditional conductor, they auditioned the drummers first. At least they did in my case. Yeah. So I went in, met Chuck, and he gave me a shot. I learned the show. He said, learn this note for note, exactly how I play it. So being a Neil Peart fan, I knew what that meant. I learned every fill down to the final stroke. And I got the gig. I started there. And then, like you said before, word of mouth. A couple of the horn players, you know, I can remember one of the horn players, Dave Richards, you know, you'd sit in the room after the show, after you did a good job at this show. You say, hey man, where are you from? You know, I'm from New York. Where are you from? What else are you doing? Oh, I'm playing on Jersey Boys. You know, you'd be great there. And then he recommends you to the drummer at Jersey Boys. And then, and you go in and you do a good job. You're a cool person. You hang out, you do the hang, you network, you're nice, and word of mouth, and you just get recommended. So that's kind of how it all ballooned up from there.
It really is amazing. Well, word of mouth means that people like you as a person and as a player. That's the combination there, because if they don't like you as a person, even though you're a great player, it's a good chance you might not be recommended. And even though you're a real nice person, but you don't play that well, there's also a good chance you might not get recommended. So the suggestion's got to come down to, listen, musicians are a family. You fit into the family. If you're a good person and you're fun to be with and you're humorous and you get the job done and you're prepared and you play well, there's a good chance you're going to have more people on your side to suggest you. And that's really kind of what has happened, Joe, which has been just fantastic. Let's talk some cymbals, Joe. Some Sabian cymbals. I've been with the company now for well over 30 years, and in all of my years of playing Sabian, I have never broken a cymbal, and I am not kind on my cymbal. Amazing to see. So, what about your setup?
Well, actually, I have up here right now an artisan ride. I brought out a couple of my favorite rides. I was just going to put them up and let you hear them. So, Don, does it sound better if I mute this mic when I play it?
No?
Could you hear that?
Yeah, muting is probably better.
Okay. Muted is better. Okay. So this is an artisan. This is sort of the Rolls Royce. And I can't seem to take it off the stand because it does everything. It's not. It has a bell. It's not just a jazz cymbal, although it sounds. You can also, it's got enough of a bell that you can definitely play off that. But should I show a couple other options?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
So,
Joe Bergamini Sabian Vault here.
The Sabian Vault. This, my son Nick, who's in music college, commandeered the Apollo, so I stole it back for today. This is the AA Apollo, which is normal on the bottom and distressed on the top.
So it's lathed in the bottom and unlathed on top.
So check out, this kind of has a vintage AA hammering type of sound. So you can definitely swing on it and it responds, but it's got like, I think of like, Benny Benjamin, Motown type of stuff with it, because it's got that like ta on the top. So it sounds like it's older than it really is,
Hey, it's the same thing with me. I sound a lot older than I really am. I get it.
But you look great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you might want to get your eyes checked.
Oh, yeah, I can't see anything with these stupid glasses.
Very much.
This is one that I've had a while. You can see by the hand-hammered writing on it. This is the Raw Bell Dry Ride, which is one of the most popular ride cymbals ever made by any company. It's a little bit heavier, but super versatile. So this is kind of the go-to if I'm playing anything like on a little more in the rock side of things, So check this one out. If you're going to play the bell, the ride, and rock, you might as well play the Neil Peart cymbal rhythm. You know what I mean? But that bell's pretty cutting, right?
It sounds fantastic. All of them sound very unique and different, and that's part of what having a stash of cymbals has. It's really an important variety to have.
So you can with a cymbal like this, you can the bow of it, because it's heavier, will it'll give you more definition, but because it's hand hammered, it's not very pingy and bright. I don't mind the pingy and bright thing if the music is right. I didn't get out my AA heavy ride, but so it gives you enough presence there. But there's enough ping to cut through a rock band if you need that.
Yeah. Nice. What do you have? Just show us the other cymbals, Joe. Maybe go to your overhead shot.
Oh yeah, okay.
Let's see what that's like.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say what they are, and then I'll play them. I'll mute and I'll play them. So I insist on playing my prog rocky fusiony setup. I'm not a trendy guy with a 4-piece here, so I got a lot of cymbals. So I love Simon Phillips, and I've always had 2 Chinas. So I have an HH20 on this side, and I have an 18-inch AAX on this side, and then splashes. 2 splashes. I currently have up the max splashes. Mike Portnoy one's a 7 and a 9. I'll play those cymbals. So you can
Great.
always love to have a splash in China. I have artisan crashes up in the front, and then this is actually an HHX complex thin. So the HHX complexes have been very, very popular. They're super rich sounding, kind of similar to the artisans. You'll hear it. So the artisans in the front, this is a 17 and 18, and a 19-inch HHX complex thin. So those are the crashes, and then I have a stacks down here. It's a 16-inch stacks with a sick hat top on top of an XSR China, and this was a Sabian design. Sabian has a few designs where they match them together. So this was designed by Sabian, and then these are really old. These are mini hats, 10-inch, which are not available anymore. But you can make your own if you get a couple of splashes. So that's it. That's the cymbal setup.
Fantastic.
What do you have on your kit?
Well, great setup you had there too. And I want to also mention the Mike Portnoy Max Stacks and what he has going on too. There's some great sounds there. That also there's such a wide variety that Sabian offers that it's so unique to have. Do the research. Go to the website Sabian.com and really check out and see what's out there, because there's some great options to have. And listen, by having a more wide variety of cymbals, for me it just adds more to the fun factor. My kit here, Joe. This is
Let's see.
In my studio, I've got a 10-inch and 12-inch splash cymbal here, and I'll just tap the cymbals. And for some reason, StreamYard, the program that we're using right now, did not accept my full sound system and camera system, so I'm just using my laptop right now. So what we'll do is we'll find out what the challenge is. I'll resolve that. At some point, we'll do it, and I have my overhead, my foot cam, and I got all the stuff going on here that's fun to teach with. But the 10 and 12-inch splash is to my left. Having it on my left side, it allows my left side, which is my weaker side, to kind of open up some more and play. I've got 2 crashes in front of me. These are all HHX. I love the HHX dark, dark and dirty sounds. I like to tune my drums a little bit lower. These have a little bit lower range to them, so the lowerness sound of the cymbals and the drums kind of blend, and I kind of like that sound. So my 2 cymbals are both 17s. And they're both 17s in about a third apart of sound. So I kind of look at the 2 same sizes, but they're different tone qualities in the same size. So my 10, 12, 17 are my crashes that I have right available to me. I've got 2 ride cymbals. My left ride cymbal for my left side is an HHX 20-inch stage ride, and it just has a great sound as far as giving me the articulation that I want to have on my left side. My right side, my right ride, is a 20-inch Evolution. It's an HHX in the HHX family, but it's the Evolution out of the mind of the great Dave Weckl. And as Dave has thought of these cymbals that he wanted to have a certain thinner sound for the Evolution, It came out with just a beautiful sounding ride that allows me to achieve a lot of different genres and rock, funk, whatever it is that I'm doing, Latin. It kind of allows me to open up on that cymbal. And then Weckl came out where he wanted an even thinner cymbal and came out with the legacy cymbals, which is just fantastic, which again, Joe has right there, which is just a beautiful sounding cymbal in what happened. So this is the evolution here. I've got two hi-hats. I've got 14-inch hi-hats to my left when I'm playing open-handed here. And I've got a 15-inch here. So by having 14s and 15s, I've got a deeper sound coming out of my 15. So on my right side, when I'm driving with a deeper, fatter hi-hat sound, I feel like I can push the band more. And with my 14 inches on my left side, it's more of a faster sound. So I've got the options of those two sounds that are available on this kit. And having an X hat to my right with those hi-hats, to me, is really where what I call 21st century drumming, which is two rides, two hi-hats, so it allows you to play right or left-hand playing. Then two of my favorite are my 18-inch Chinese cymbal here and my 20-inch Chinese cymbal here. And those just allow me to attack the sound when I need to be in that mode where you can thrash it and play harder music, and it's just kind of allows the sound to open up. By going from an 18 then crashing onto a 20, it stays in that Chinese sound range, but it's sharp and attackful with the 18, and then the 20 opens up to a whole another sound. So it's a fun setup. I've been using this setup for years when I travel around the world, and of course in my studio. On my students' kit, I've got a different setup there of all Sabian cymbals. So the variety of coming in here and being able to hear all these different sounds, I think, inspires students who want to just do a little bit of research on their own. And not only is it the sounds you're looking for, but it's the sizes and the setup of where your placement is. That I almost would like to get pictures, Joe, of all different artists and their placement of cymbals, and then show those pictures so we can show the placement of how Portnoy sets up, how Bosio sets up, how Garibaldi sets up by having an overhead shot. Yeah. Why don't we map that out one day to just do, overhead shots, so we can get that from the company. And let's just go down all the different artists so we can showcase the different creativity of where you might want your cymbals in the locations that there are. So I think that has some great options. Then create your own, and I'm sure each of you has your own little comfortable setup.
Yep. That's all great stuff. By the way, Dom, you one thing a lot of students don't do, and I'm not as much as you, but you really keep those hi-hats wide open.
On my 14-inch.
Yeah.
Oh man, these things are what you can put a bologna sandwich on a hero in there, and and part of I got that, believe it or not, was from Steve Gadd. When I went to hear Steve play, I noticed his hi-hat was really wide. And I said, Steve, what's with your hi-hat that wide? And he just kind of said, he says, well, when I drop my foot for my hi-hat sound, I can get a better hi-hat sound because of the distance. And he said, plus I can splash the cymbals and get a hi-hat splash sound. And he said, plus his feet, the hi-hat pedal is even with the bass pedal when they go down. See, if your hi-hat is only an inch apart, your hi-hat goes down here, but your bass drum goes down to here. So your feet are not really even in the feel of what's happening. So by doing this, I have all of my pedals, my bass drum pedal, my slave bass drum pedal, and my hi-hat all coming down to the same location of distance, which makes, for me, the feel of my feet more balanced.
Right. That's great. By the way, Sean McCoy had a comment there. What do you think about the 21-inch Holy China? Well, Sean, I love it, and my son loves it more because it's on his kit right over there. You guys probably can't see it, but it's back over there. So when you choose any of these cymbals, like with the Chinas, I was showing a student last night. So the one I have here, the AAX18, it's pretty sharp. Like you can play your Rush type stuff on it. Like you can. But it's not as sharp as a AA Extreme Chinese, right? And it's a little sharper than what Dom has because his are HHs. So the Holy China, those holes mellow it out just a little tiny bit, but not much. And it's in the AAX range. So that's another thing I want to mention too, is that There is a price difference between the AAX and the HHX, hand hammered. But some of the AAX cymbals that are coming out now, like for instance, I've been using the HHX crashes. Wait, let me get this without knocking everything over. So this is a 19 AAX thin crash, and it's not when you think of HHX cymbals are exquisite instruments, but just check out how this sounds.
Beautiful.
So you're still getting, from an AAX brilliant, you're still getting, it's a smooth, warm sound that mixes well with the band. So, AAX are a little less expensive than HHX. So, you can, if an HHX is in your budget, that's fine. You can go with these. And I actually have been using most of these AAXs when I tour with the Doo-Wop project because they're just enough to cut through, but still super musical.
Boy, fantastic, Joe. Boy, thanks so much. We kind of squeeze this hour out. Kristen Johnson will absolutely join us in the future and talk about his book, Pareidolia, and we'll keep you informed with that. So again, make sure you're signed up to Sabian.com/join SEN, so you'll get the newsletters and the information of what's happening. You'll get access to all these past footage that we have from so much great content. Go there, enjoy it, sit back one day and just start scanning through a lot of these videos. You'll have some fun. Joe, thank you so much for joining me and being able to continue on with this. Our every other Thursday, I've got my little session here. You've got your events that you're doing with the past guys that you've had, from Jim Toscano talking about studio setup, from Mike Sorrentino talking about just the whole recording concept of what he's doing is so incredible. So there's great information out there. We thank you all for joining us, and we'll continue on with the Sabian Education Network. Stay well, stay safe. Joe, have a good day, and I'll track you down real soon.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sabian. Bye-bye.